How long is our homeschool day? Great question. This has varied a lot over the years, and I think it's important to point out why that's the case. So I'm going to share with you 5 variables that will affect how long your homeschool day takes. I'll share with you our answers to each of those variables, so stay tuned. Hi friends! The purpose of this channel is to empower other homeschool moms to have the tools, confidence, and encouragement to homeschool your children and know you're doing a great job. So be sure to like this video and subscribe. Now let's get on to today's topic. So first I want to share with you the 5 variables that I think really affect the amount of time that it's going to take to get your homeschool done in a day. Number 1, which you could probably guess, is the number of kids you have and the number of kids that you're actually teaching. Number 2 is the age of kids that you have. You know, as they get older, they become more independent, but also they usually have more schoolwork. Number 3 is their type of curriculum and how many subjects you are having to teach them. Number 4 is how many subjects you're doing per day. And number 5 is everyone's attitudes. Am I right? That can make the difference between a couple hours to all day long. Okay, so let's talk about what our homeschool looks like this year, the 2022 to 2023 school year. So to answer each of those variables for our current school year, we have, number 1, we have 4 kids, and they are 5th grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade, and preschool. And if you've been around for a while, you know all of that. Number 3 is the type of curriculums. So let me break this down into each kid real quick. So for my 5th grader, he is using almost all online video curriculums. I'm only having to do spelling with him. So this has been a huge game changer for our homeschool. So if you are currently feeling overwhelmed, or maybe you're not even homeschooling yet, you're just doing the research and trying to figure out if this is something that you could do. First, I will say, yes, you absolutely can. Number 2, if you're feeling pretty intimidated by it, there are amazing video curriculums that you can use, meaning you don't have to do the teaching. So it's super easy on you. Now, of course, we are still available to our kids to ask questions, go over their work with them, make sure they did it correctly, make sure they understand the material. And so sometimes that does require me to then go and watch that video lesson with them if it's something I know nothing about or have forgotten since my 5th grade year. But the fact that he can be learning from another teacher, either on the computer or for some curriculums we have a DVD, while I'm working with one of his siblings, is really great. That really frees me up, and it allows us to not have to do school all day long where they're all waiting on me to teach each of them. Now, there are other homeschool moms who have figured out a great way to do that. There's a lot of other channels on here that don't use any video curriculums, and they do have 4 or more children, and they do it really well. So there are definitely ways to do it, you know, with or without a video curriculum. But I will say that we've been using video curriculums for the last couple of years, and it was like a game changer for our homeschool. So big fan of those. And we're not using them for every single subject, every kid, but it is helping to take a lot off of my plate. So yes, it doesn't take me very long to work with him. I'll answer questions that he has along the way. If he doesn't have an assignment for a particular subject that day, then I'll ask him what he learned in his video, and we'll discuss that for a little bit. If he does have an assignment, then I will check that work and go over it with him if he gets any of it wrong, making sure that he understands the content. Now, my 3rd grader is using several online video curriculums as well, which is very helpful. Now, we are doing language arts through The Good and the Beautiful, so that does require me to sit with her and teach her for at least 20 minutes, and then she has independent work, which usually takes about 20 minutes. But then she has a video curriculum for history and science and math. Now math, she only has to watch 1 time per week, usually 1 lesson per unit, and then she has a couple of worksheets she does throughout the week. And so for that, if it's something that's kind of tripping her up, we will work on that together. But if she's getting it pretty well, she can do that independently and then bring me the worksheet to check afterwards. And then that's the same with history and science, she's going to bring me her worksheets after she's watched the video, and we'll review those together. And then I have a first grader, and we're doing the Good and the Beautiful for language arts as well, but I don't think he's quite ready to just like plow through that curriculum. So we're also mixing in Hooked on Phonics lessons. So some days we do Hooked on Phonics, some days we do the Good and the Beautiful. And so when it's a Hooked on Phonics day, it requires less of my time. Like he's got independent games he can do on there before we get to the storybook. And then we read together for about 15 minutes. But with the Good and the Beautiful, that's something that I will sit down and teach him, and then we read together. And then he'll have a little bit of independent work on like a worksheet to do. But even some of that I'm kind of helping him with. And then for math, he also has a video curriculum just like my other two kids. So he'll watch one lesson per week. And then I will sit with him while he does those math worksheets. Sometimes I can be, answering somebody else's questions in between helping him with that worksheet. But I want to be very readily available still for him. He's not quite ready to just be on his own with that. So I'll sit with him while he does his math worksheet and we'll review that together. And then he does science with his sister, my third grader, and they watch that video together, do the worksheet together, and then I check that with them. So that is actually really great. Huge fan of being able to combine kids into a subject. I know there are a lot of families who do family subjects, is what they call it. So like for maybe history and science, they would sit together with their full range age of kids and teach them all the same thing. So there are curriculums out there that are set up for that. The one that we are using is called Science Shepherd. And so it's the same video that they watch, but you can get two different levels of their workbooks. So one is made for younger kids, one's made for older, but they do share a lot of the same questions. So it's great for my third grader to be able to help my first grader with, which also frees me up to be working with either my fifth grader or my preschooler. So getting to the last kid, my preschooler, he's 3.5. And preschool age doesn't require a whole lot. They are learning through play and everyday life things and educational videos and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have to do a lot of formal schooling with him. And I even have my older kids do some of that with him for me. They will go and sit with him and play a game with him or do a worksheet out of his little preschool workbook with him or something like that. And so it doesn't take a whole lot of my time to do like formal school with him, but really what happens with preschoolers, right, is you're usually doing like damage control. Like, okay, don't get into anything that you shouldn't be, don't be distracting everybody else in the schoolroom. So he takes my attention away with those kinds of things, right? So he does still require my time, but it's not all like formal sit down school time that he's requiring. So little tip for you, if you do have multiple children, you can have them work with each other on things and help teach the younger ones. And that can be a great thing for them, a great character builder for them, and just wonderful relationship building between the siblings. So our school day this year lasts about 3.5 to 4 hours. And for my fifth grader, that could actually be a little bit shorter if we were doing a 5-day-a-week school week. I did a video recently explaining why and how we do a 4-day-a-week school week. And so for him, he is doubling up on most of his subjects throughout the week. So he'll have one day where he has 2 English lessons, one day where he has 2 history lessons, that kind of thing. And so his day could be a little bit shorter if we were doing 5 school days. Our school day might be longer if we were doing more subjects. Like last year, we did Spanish 2 days a week. So that added extra time. There's all kinds of things you could be adding in. So that is going to determine the length of your school day as well. So for us, we're normally doing our Bible time during breakfast or right after breakfast. And then we head up to the schoolroom around 8:45. And so my fifth grader has handwriting, English, history, science, math. And then my main goal is to get school done by lunchtime. Now, some days that means lunch is starting at like 12:45, right? It's starting a little later, but we really, really want to just knock school out in the morning. One reason is that it is really hard for me to corral them back and get them back in the school mindset. Like, okay, let's keep going. We have another subject. But number two, and probably more of the reason, is that I don't really want to keep going. I'm kind of done. I'm ready to move on to the next portion of our day. I'm ready for them to have some free time and me to have some free time. I might need things, bills to pay, phone calls to make, work out, get some work done. There's always a long list, right? There's always a list. And so by that point in the day, I'm like, okay, I have a big to-do list as well. It's time for me to start getting that stuff done, and y'all can have free time. So even if that means that lunch is getting started a little bit later, I'm okay with that, as long as their attitudes are still okay. And so sometimes it means like, all right, go grab a snack, and then we'll finish this next subject just to kind of tie them over until lunch. But if your kids are like really just struggling and you feel like a lunch break actually helps and is better, then by all means, like, this doesn't mean it's the best schedule for everybody. It's just what I prefer. So we just usually try to get it all wrapped up by lunchtime, whatever that lunchtime really means. Now, we have been homeschooling since the very beginning. 7 years ago, basically, is when my oldest was 3, and we were doing preschool. And back then, it really didn't require much time. You could do 10 to 25 minutes a day, not even every single day of the week, and they would be right where they need to be. It really doesn't take a lot of formal schooling because, like I said earlier, they're learning through play and life in general and reading books together and watching educational shows and things like that. So it doesn't take a whole lot of formal schooling time, and they don't really want to sit down for long, right? And I think that's great. I'm all about, movement and being active. I think it's fantastic. So back when he was just a preschooler, we didn't have like a whole lot of time that we had to do. So I had a preschooler and a baby. And then each year where, the kids are leveling up a year, leveling up a grade, then I'd have like another baby and then another baby. And so each year looked a little bit different depending on the ages of our kids and the amount of kids we had, and then the types of curriculum we were doing. So one of the years, the last year before we found these video curriculums, I want to say it was my son's 3rd grade year. So, it's a pretty legit school year, like a pretty good amount of schoolwork that we needed to do. So I had a 3rd grader, a 1st grader, a pre-Ker, and a toddler. And I just remember that year being like one of the more difficult years, which is what led me to research and find some video curriculums to relieve me a bit. But that was pretty tough. And I remember that school morning feeling like it really did take a long time. And so it was very helpful to find some video curriculum so that I could be freed up to teach another kid while the other ones were watching a video. There's all different ways to homeschool, all kinds of different curriculums. The way we do it is not the only option out there. There's so many wonderful YouTube channels that are all about homeschooling on here. And so definitely go and look at some other people's examples of how they're doing it as well. But for us, this has been very helpful. You should definitely check out this video next, where I show how I planned out our homeschool day and homeschool year, so that showing you kind of like the Tetris that I had to play in order to get everyone's subjects into the right spot throughout the week, so that no one was like waiting a super long time to have me come and teach them, but rather they'd be watching a video or working on independent work while I was teaching someone else. And so just how I kind of mixed and matched all their subjects throughout the day and came up with a good schedule that would help us to get everything done without wasting anybody's time, and therefore we could get done before lunch or by lunch. So definitely go and check that one out next. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was helpful to you. If it was, leave me a comment below. I'd love to chat with you, and I will catch you in the next video. Happy schooling!